Did you know that long before the iPhone and Android devices took over the world, the concept of a smartphone already existed? And believe it or not, it was a spectacular failure. Let us travel back in time to understand why the world just wasn't ready for a phone that could do more than just make calls. The story begins in 1994 with a device called the IBM Simon Personal Communicator. This brick-like gadget was revolutionary. It had a touchscreen. You could send and receive emails and faxes, and it even had apps like a calendar, a calculator, and a world clock. It was, for all intents and purposes, the very first smartphone. So, why haven't most of us heard of it? Because it flopped hard. IBM only sold about 50,000 units before pulling it from the market in just 6 months. A few years later, in 1996, Nokia launched the Nokia 9000 communicator. This device looked like a regular phone from the outside, but it opened up like a clamshell to reveal a full QWERTY keyboard and a wide LCD screen. It could browse the web, send emails, and run business applications. It was a pocket computer. It gained a bit of a cult following, but it never achieved mainstream success. The same fate met other early pioneers, like the Ericsson R380 and the Kyocera 6035. They were brilliant ideas that just couldn't find their audience. So, why did people reject these futuristic devices? The first major reason was the price. The IBM Simon launched at $900 with a 2-year contract, which is over $1,700 in today's money. The Nokia communicator wasn't much cheaper. For the average person in the 90s, spending that much on a phone was unthinkable, especially when a regular mobile phone cost a fraction of that and did its primary job perfectly well, making phone calls. These early smartphones were positioned as luxury business tools, not as essential devices for everyone. The market was incredibly small. Think about it. Who really needed to check their email on the go back then? For most people, the internet was something you accessed on a desktop computer at home or at work. The idea of having it in your pocket was a novelty, not a necessity. The existing mobile phones were simple, durable, and had batteries that lasted for days. In contrast, these new smart devices were complicated, bulky, and had abysmal battery life. The Simon, for example, lasted for about an hour of use before needing a charge. That was a huge step backward in convenience. Then, there were the severe limitations of the technology at the time. The biggest hurdle was the network. We're talking about the era of 2G cellular networks. Data speeds were painfully slow, measured in kilobits per second, not megabits. Trying to browse a web page or download an email attachment was an exercise in extreme patience. It could take several minutes just for a simple page to load, and it was expensive. Data plans were not common, and users were often charged by the kilobyte. A few minutes of browsing could result in a shockingly high bill. The user experience was also a major problem. The touchscreens on devices like the Simon were resistive, not capacitive, like we have today. You had to press down firmly with a stylus, and they weren't very accurate. Typing was a chore. The software was clunky, and the operating systems were slow and prone to crashing. There was no app store. You were stuck with the pre-installed applications, which were limited in function and not particularly user-friendly. In essence, these devices promised a future they couldn't quite deliver. The hardware and software were struggling to keep up with the ambitious vision. It was like trying to run a modern video game on a computer from the 1980s. The idea was great, but the engine just wasn't powerful enough. So, what changed? How did we go from these failed experiments to a world where over 6 billion people use smartphones? A perfect storm of technological advancements had to occur first. The first piece of the puzzle was the network. The rollout of 3G and later 4G networks was a game changer. Suddenly, Mobile internet was fast enough to be genuinely useful. You could stream videos, browse complex websites, and download files in seconds, not minutes. This made the smart features of the phone not just a gimmick, but a core part of the experience. The second piece was hardware maturation. Processors became exponentially faster and more efficient. Battery technology improved, allowing phones to last a full day, even with heavy use. Screens became vibrant high-resolution and responsive thanks to capacitive touch technology. Components like GPS, accelerometers, and high-quality cameras were miniaturized and became cheap enough to include as standard. And then, in 2007, the iPhone arrived. Apple didn't invent the smartphone, but they perfected the recipe. They took all these maturing technologies and combined them with a brilliant, intuitive user interface. The multi-touch screen felt like magic. But the real genius was the App Store. Launched a year later, it created a vibrant ecosystem. Suddenly, your phone wasn't just a device with fixed functions. It was a platform that could become anything you wanted it to be, thanks to millions of developers creating apps. Google quickly followed with Android, offering a more open platform that allowed various manufacturers to build their own devices, driving competition and lowering prices. These new devices weren't just for business executives anymore. They were designed for everyone. They were personal, fun, and infinitely useful. They became our camera, our music player, our navigator, our connection to friends and family. They solved real, everyday problems and created new forms of entertainment. The timing was perfect. The technology was ready. The networks were capable. And the market was hungry for something new, even if they didn't know it yet. The story of the first failed smartphones holds a powerful lesson about innovation. It's not always about having the best idea first. In fact, being too early can be just as bad as being too late. The IBM Simon was a visionary product, but it was a vision the world couldn't support at the time. Success is often a matter of timing a delicate dance between a groundbreaking idea and the readiness of the surrounding technology, infrastructure, and culture. The failures of the past weren't really failures at all. They were crucial stepping stones. They were the pioneers that explored the wilderness and mapped out the challenges, paving the way for the successes that followed. It reminds us that sometimes an idea needs to wait for the world to catch up. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this journey back in time interesting, please give this video a like. And consider subscribing for more stories about the tech that shapes our world. See you in the next one.